Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. So excited to be with you today. It's been a while, huh? We almost missed the show today. I'm like 3 minutes late. Couldn't get my thing going on the computer. I'm sharing. I'm going to share it real quick with some peeps. Maybe do a little watch party. Hold on. Check me out live now. Why does it auto-corrects to Chris me out live now, which is kind of cool. Check me out live now. And I'm going to start a watch party. I love these watch parties, CC. I don't know if you know, how these work. I shouldn't even say that. That sounds condescending, but like, I guess I'm starting a watch party with like my friends, and they can comment to me, and as they're commenting, I can read the comments, but you can't see them. So I'm going to put that up here. So today we're talking about attachment to toxicity. And man, I'll be honest. So my life coach is somebody I want to get. Oh shoot, my life coach is somebody I want to get on to our show at some point, and she's great. I mean, she's just awesome. I want to have her on at some point. I think she'd be a really good. I typically only tend to have men on the show, simply because it's a men's show. It's a barbershop, but man, I mean, she's got some knowledge for me that is just incredible. And, one of the things that we've been talking about is kind of my attachment to toxicity, these toxic relationships that we just go back and forth on. And it's not great. It's not a great way to really spend your your formative relational years. I wanted to start tonight by defining toxicity. And I thought what would be interesting, we'll define toxicity certainly in the relationship sense, but where does the word stem from, right? And where's the camera? Is the camera here? If I look at the screen, are you seeing me? So toxicity in its actual sense, right? The quality of being toxic or poisonous, the quality of being very harmful or unpleasant in a pervasive or insidious way. What are the signs of toxicity? Let's check this out, okay? I want you to think about the signs of toxicity as they relate to relationship toxicity, okay? Feeling and being sick, diarrhea, stomach pain, drowsiness, dizziness, or weakness, high temperature, chills, loss of appetite, headache, and wait, there's a couple more if I scroll down. Irritability, breathing difficulties, skin rash, seizures, loss of consciousness, coma, double vision, right? These are all signs of regular toxicity, like the toxicity you have when something occurs physically you've eaten something bad, whatever. And I tend to think, when I think about toxicity, the first thing I think of is like mixing two chemicals together that definitely shouldn't be mixed together because they're going to kill someone, right? Is that not toxicity in its relationship form, right? Mixing two things together, right? That wouldn't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily be together, right? That's toxicity. So now I want to jump into the actual, what is a toxic relationship? What are the symptoms of a toxic relationship? Okay. Lack of support, toxic communication, jealousy, controlling behavior, resentment, dishonesty, patterns of disrespect, negative financial behavior. Ooh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that until I saw it on the site as well. There's 38 different signs of toxic behavior in a relationship. Resentment, dishonesty, ignoring needs, constant stress, lost relationships, lack of self-care, hoping for change, right? Things of that nature, okay? You know me. You've seen me on the show before talk about one of my favorite movies. And I talked about it endearingly when I was in a toxic relationship or trying to get a toxic relationship back. I was talking about the relationship in the movie Hancock. And I thought what would be interesting is I kind of just talked about Hancock in my own sense and, kind of just talked about the actual, the thing. But I thought what I would do is I really want to read the actual, like the plot to you. Okay. Because I thought you might want to see how the plot is versus, like what I define it as, right? So I'm just pulling that up on the screen right now. So let me see if I would just take it a second. Okay. Hancock is a superhero whose ill-considered behavior regularly causes damage in the millions. He changes when the person he saves helps him improve his public image. That is what you see when you look at the trailer. This entire movie, in my opinion, maybe I'm biased, right? This entire movie, to me, is about a man who's tormented over and over and over by a love that he can't have. And it destroys him from the inside out. Well, it destroys him from the outside as well. I mean, because Charlize Theron kicks his butt a couple of times. But you've got this. Hold on, I'm going to move this and hope that my cell phone doesn't fall. Okay. I like to get a little bit more on my face. You've got this guy and this woman. Look, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Hancock, I've talked about it enough times. If you have not seen Hancock, turn this off. And you spoiler alert, don't watch. Okay. But I'm confident you've seen my show enough where you know the plot of Hancock. It's about this dude, and this dude is infinitely powerful, and he can live eternally. Okay, and eventually you find out what happened and how he lost his way and all this kind of stuff. Charlize Theron is his partner, his lover, his the yin to his yang. I don't know how else to describe it. They are linked, they are connected, and they don't know. Well, she remembers. He doesn't because he had a coma. And he winds up getting back with Charlize Theron. And he winds up meeting Charlize Theron again, and it starts to jog his memory. She's married to Jason Bateman, who's like this PR guy, and he remembers. They lived eternally together. And the closer they get to each other, right, the more vulnerable they are to other people. Now, this is a romantic notion. The closer you are to someone, the more vulnerable you make yourself. I can dig it. I can absolutely dig it. I want in my life, and Hancock got a 6.4 out of 10. You don't know what you're talking about. It's a great movie. In my life, my goal is to be the utmost vulnerable person with someone. To allow them in so deeply and so greatly that that's just the partner that I have, and we just love on each other, and there's nothing we can't do together. There's a couple of other things before I jump into the toxicity that I spoke about romantically that I'm still going to speak romantically about without the toxicity. In this movie, they're eternal lovers, right? Eternal, and they're all powerful. Okay. And I remember when I spoke about this toxic kind of relationship, I remember a couple of months ago, I was like, but they love each other, and it makes them vulnerable to the outside world. Right. And there was a romanticism about that conversation. Right. Here's my problem now with this conversation that we're having. Okay. With this conversation that we're having now, I neglected to remember a few things. Okay, I'm just inviting people now that this thing comes up as I can actually invite people to the show, and I love when people join the watch party. So here's my problem. Okay, my problem is this. I spoke about this romantically in that people were, they were doing their thing, and they were vulnerable to other people, and that's okay, right? It's totally okay to be vulnerable to the outside world if you're with your lover. Okay, I disagree. Okay. You can be vulnerable with your lover, and your lover can hurt you. It's unfortunate that your lover can hurt you, right? But what winds up happening is your lover or partner in a toxic relationship, and that is exactly what Hancock is. Your lover or partner in this toxic relationship makes you vulnerable to everyone else because they are your kryptonite, because they are leaving you without the tools, they're leaving you without the strength that you need to attack the rest of the world, because you are warding off the toxicity that occurs in a toxic relationship, right? And we often think in these relationships, there is so much great about this person. If we could just figure it out. My most toxic relationships, okay? We'll talk about this in a second. We'll talk about why we stay in toxic relationships. My most toxic relationships were also most just pure, raw, incredibly the most amazing, incredible, physically just beautiful things that you could ever imagine. And there's a romanticism, right, in that end to that relationship, and that vulnerability that you have when you're in that toxic thing. You romanticize it. Now, we're not talking about abuse. I want to talk about that separately, okay? Because I think often sometimes we're quick to say abuse when it really is just toxic. Two people mixing together in a chemical reaction that doesn't work. Now, there is sometimes abuse can stem from toxicity, and I don't love that either. But I think we do need to make that separation, right? But some of the most toxic relationships I've been in, yes, some of them have been abusive, right? But some of them have been Jonathan Rizzo, so funny. He's on my watch party. You're the best, man. Thanks for chiming in. I'm not going to include that comment, but you're too funny. Some of the most toxic relationships, the most raw energy, the quickest, like you are just so into that person, right? It's unreal, the level of magnetism. And I'm going to keep going back to this Hancock movie, because that's what it was, right? The movie itself in Hancock was so good, in my opinion. It was not a superhero movie. It was a love story. Just like, I'll say, the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson and I forget her name, but they fall in love. Not a movie about love. That's a movie about a dude who's trying to learn marketing. Straight up. Okay? This movie, Hancock, was not about a superhero who had lost his way. It was about a love that he lost because he realized the closer he was to this person, he didn't have what he needed to serve the rest of the world. He lost his ability to save the world because he put so much energy and effort into being next to this person. And is that not what we do when we are in toxic relationships? Tell me that's not what we do when we're in toxic relationships. Tell me we don't drain ourselves. Tell me we don't lose ourselves. Tell me we don't put everything we possibly can into a toxic relationship in the hopes that we're going to make it work, and we lose our ability to save the world. Every single person that's in my circle, the people that I hold valuable in my circle, are without a doubt capable of saving the world. Okay, I'm seeing people on my watch party. John Rizzo was on like American Idol, Dancing with the Star. He was in like a million different reality shows, like in music. This guy is amazing. Okay, dude can save the world. Okay, should not waste his energy on a toxic relationship, because what you're doing is you're stopping your ability to serve the rest of the planet, to serve yourself better. So I want to talk about a couple of the reasons that we stay in toxic relationships. Okay. Now, so this particular website I don't love, but it talks specifically about it kind of interchanges this toxicity and abuse. And I don't love that, because I want to talk about the difference. Okay, a toxic relationship is two people who are not meant to be, who love differently, okay, who shouldn't be together, okay? Now, there are some other ways, there are some other things that happen with abuse that I think, the cycle of abuse, right? Those types of things. So let me talk about this. So 10 reasons we stay in a toxic relationship. Intermittent reinforcement. So this can be synonymous with abuse as well, but it's also synonymous with toxicity. You're in this relationship and you find these things that want to keep you kind of in that. I love you too, Jonathan. We find these things that want to keep you in that relationship because you pick apart these certain things. You know what it's like? Okay. So imagine going to a restaurant. Okay. And they cook the worst steak you've ever had in your entire life. I mean, it is like the worst, right? Picture your mom or your dad or your guardian just burning the steak and like cover it in ketchup or whatever, just not tenderizing, just the worst steak you've ever had, okay? But the potato croquettes next to the steak, are those good? And you just have hopes that this steak is going to get better because you keep going back and ordering the steak for these potato croquettes. That is kind of like a toxic relationship. Okay, because there are these hot and cold pull and push moments in a toxic relationship that you just keep coming back for. You know what it's like? I'll tell you what, I hate golf. Okay, Can't stand golf. I don't understand a sport where you can't hit people across the face with something. Okay, give me. I've got a stick in my hand, and you're not going to let me hit somebody with it. That's manipulative. You're leading me on. Okay, if I've got something in my hand, I should have pads on, and I want to beat somebody with it. Okay, you've got this little tiny ball. You got to fit in this little hole. To me, it's not even a sport. Okay, I don't even understand what we're doing. Okay, but I've gone. There was a couple of years that I was in banking and all this kind of stuff, and so I was like, you know what? Let me go golfing. Right? People are. I'm sorry. I did not decide to go golfing. People invited me to go golfing, and I'm like, all right. I guess this is what you do. You get older, you start making friends who have money. A couple of things I did. I started flying, and I started golfing. Flying, I'll still do. It's a lot of fun. There's not a big little hole that you have to hit, right? Golfing, I don't understand. But here's the thing: you hit the ball, right? And you hit the ball into this tiny little hole, and once in a while it goes in it, and you hear, can you hear like you hear, like it goes into the hole? You know what I'm saying? So it goes into the hole, right? Or you have a great chip shot. Oh, a great chip shot out of the rough, and it's beautiful, and everything's wonderful, right? And so you're like, oh man, all right, I'm gonna come back. You know, in 18 holes, you're swinging like three to five times a hole if you're okay, maybe 7 times a hole. And it's like those 2 swings, that one swing you come back for, right? That is the push and pull of a toxic relationship. Okay. Now, this article, I'm reading universetherapy.com. This article says that low self-esteem may cause it. I'm gonna change that to not understanding the value that you bring to a relationship and how you need to be loved. You understand? So I don't know that that's necessarily low self-esteem. I think that may be a low understanding of what you bring to a relationship, a low understanding of what you value. I'll be honest. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit. My values, my 5 love languages. Number 1, words of affirmation. Number 2 used to be physicality, physical touch. It's now moved on to be acts of service. It used to be, I used to tell my partner, look, just touch my butt and call me pretty. That's all I want. Okay. Let me know that I'm pretty and give me a touch. Okay. I enjoy acts of service now a little bit more. You're recognizing with me, I'm a busy guy. I'm taking probably a day off this week because I'm just exhausted. I'm a university administrator. I run a couple of magazines. I've got some retail space. I've got a brand management company. It's like never ending. I'm trying to finish this book that my publisher is excited for, right? And so it's never ending. I'm getting my real estate license so I can buy some real estate here in Vegas. You make me a cup of coffee in the morning because you know that that's something that I value. You know that I'm really... Britta says we're both watching Tony and I. Oh, I appreciate that, Britta. And I invited Tony as well, so that's awesome. So you make me a cup of coffee at 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning because you know that's when I wake up, or 5. I'm usually up around 5. You know that it's one less thing I have to do. You pack me lunch. You take out the trash. You clean the dishes. I'm not asking for a maid here, right? Or somebody in service, but an act of service to me shows me 1,000 times that you love me. Now, is that to say if I don't get that, I have low self-esteem because I'm still in a relationship? No, it means that I'm willing to communicate with my partner in a little bit more before I see that happening, right? Let's talk about number 4. They say fear of loneliness. I will absolutely agree. Fear of loneliness is 100% a great a great indicator of why people stay in a toxic relationship. The reasons that I stayed in the toxic relationships that I did were not that I didn't see that they were toxic and bad for me. My response was, well, am I going to find something that's as good as this? Which is stupid, real stupid. Now they go on and they say investment, right? The more someone invests in a relationship, the harder it is to let go. I'm going to say that's the same thing. Okay. Your willingness to not let go versus what you've already put in, because you're afraid that when you get into something else, it's not going to be what you want, right? An illusion of control. You think you have control over the situation and you think it can be fixed, right? Need to help or fix the partner, 100%. If I do this, if I keep going back for those potatoes, the steak are going to come, right? Family and children, I'm not going to be able to relate to, so I won't speak to. Guilt. Now, this blaming yourself, the guilt, could come from a bit of abuse as well. But when I find toxic relationships actually occur, I find there to be a major misunderstanding and communication. And then lastly, they say manipulation, entrapment. And again, I'm going to say that is probably more of an abusive thing than a toxic thing. So, hey, it's 20 minutes on the hour. Oh my goodness. Christy says, I can't believe I joined. Yes, I can believe that you joined. I'm so glad that you're signing on tonight. So it's 20 minutes on the hour. If you have not been with our show before, Cece likes to throw a quick commercial in. This is how we pay our bills. Super excited to just take a quick break with you. Stay with us. It'll take about 20 to 30 seconds. You're watching WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. Tonight, we're talking about attachment to toxicities. And I'll be honest, I feel like a fraud talking about this type of topic because I'm still learning myself. So you're here at the barbershop. I'm your host. Hang out with us. We'll be back in a little bit. We're just paying some bills. WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network. We'll be silent for a second. See you soon. Okay, we're back. Welcome back. This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. You are watching The Barbershop with your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. We are talking about attachment to toxicity. Cece, I got to be honest with you. Cece in the background, running the ones and twos. Your commercials are getting better and better. We got to start selling more commercials. Just give me some time. I'm like exhausted right now. I'm almost at the point where I need to take a day off at some point soon and just sleep. It's sad, but I just need that. But eventually we'll be selling some ads and we'll be having some fun. Really cool commercials though. So if you're just joining us, or just as a reminder, we're talking about attachment to toxicity. Why do we attach ourselves to these toxic situations, these toxic relationships? Spoke in the beginning, in the first part of our conversation about kind of what a toxic relationship looks like, right? Now I'd like to talk towards the end of this is typically a 45-minute show, right? We spoke the first 20 minutes on toxicity, right? I'd like to speak to the next 25 minutes and talk a little bit about what we can do to save a toxic relationship. Okay, if we feel like it's savable, if we feel like we can still kind of glow with it. Okay, now I want to say this: it is very challenging to save a toxic relationship, and it's not a job that you do by yourself. Okay, so a couple of things that Healthline will tell me: willingness to invest, right? Both have an attitude of openness. You're both not walking away, right? Acceptance of responsibility. Recognizing past behaviors have harmed the relationship on both ends, right? Shift from blaming to understanding, I think, is super important. And then openness to outside help, okay? I'm going to say openness to outside help definitely depends on, in my opinion, openness to outside help depends on how far along you are in the relationship. Look, you start a relationship and it's 3 weeks in and it's toxic and you're seeing toxic behavior. My opinion, you might want to get out, okay? Or if you can't work on it together, I don't know that you need to start going into, outside help, okay? a couple of things you can do. I'm loving this website. Don't dwell on the past, right? Stop looking to past behavior and say, this is what we're going to do now. One of my favorite quotes, oh gosh, if I can get this right. When people say, well, it's not a quote really, like, this is what I always do. No. This is what you've always done. What are you going to do differently? Right? That's always my big statement to folks. This is what you've done. What are you going to do differently? Right? You definitely need to be individually, you definitely need to be accountable individually, and you need to heal individually, as well as hold space for others' changes. Right? Now, Healthline goes on to talk about the difference between abuse and toxicity, which I think is super important, okay? Because toxicity is toxicity, right? Abuse is without a doubt abuse, right? Diminishing of self-worth, separating you from friends and family, interference with work or school or life, fear and intimidation, name-calling and put-downs. That was a big thing. That's when I realized that a relationship that I was in was no longer toxic, that it was abuse. When I said to my lover, look, I'm cool with arguing it out with you. I'll even yell it out with you if you want to yell. I hate it. I hate conflict. There have been times in classes where I've had to reprimand a student, and I hate it. Okay? I like everything to be calm and peaceful. I'm like Zen and yoga and all that stuff. Okay? But if you want to yell it out, I'll yell it out with you. Here's what I don't want to hear. You call me a name, I'm out. I'm out of that conversation. It's a disrespect that I cannot put up with. Okay? You may not know this about me. I was bullied elementary, middle, into high school. I found a group of friends that I was like, these guys are amazing. They're good guys. Okay. And you know, we had a little crew towards the middle to the end of high school. And I came into my own. I captained the football team. I realized being smart is a good thing. Getting into a good school is good. My compassion, my energy, the things that I gave to people were good things. I wasn't begging for attention, right? I wasn't sitting, I think it was 9th grade. I was sitting with my friends, and then I would sit with the cool kids for the last 20 minutes of lunch to do their homework, to hang out with them. Okay. That's a level of like bullying and stupidity that I subjected myself to. Okay. You call me a name, I'm out. Okay. That is absolutely, without a doubt. Renee says, true story. Yes, true story. You were there. That is without a doubt. If you call me a name, it's going to trigger me. It's going to bring me back to everything I've ever experienced. Not cool with it. To me, that's abuse. Okay. What you want to do is remember the 5 A's. Okay. And I'm going to read these out. Attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance, and allowance. Allowing your partner to fill the space that they need to fill, accepting the fact that they may not be there all the time, appreciating what they do have, affection, and attention, right? So in my opinion, there's a couple of books, and then I want to jump into feel free, by the way. I haven't seen too many comments. I see some great people on the chat. Comment, do whatever you can, right? Let me know if you've been in some toxic relationships, but I want to tell you 2 books or kind of readings that I think would be really helpful. Okay. Britta says, adding my son. That's incredible, Britta. Thank you. You got the whole family watching. Let's see. Elizabeth says, dopamine encodes in the brain on the anticipation of reward. The toxic relationship is addicting, the same as gambling. Not knowing whether the love and affection you want, the win is coming, because adrenaline release and perpetuates the cycle. Very important to know and understand your attachment style if you want to fix a toxic dynamic. Elizabeth, it's funny. So you may not know, Elizabeth is a dear friend of mine. She's also one of my coaches. She's an incredible person. It's like, I didn't even tell Elizabeth what my notes were for today's call or today's show, but I did tell her it was going to be on attachment to toxicity. And I think that, God, I'm speaking so fast. I'm so passionate about the topic. I got to slow down. I think that she has a lot to offer. And if I know her, she's probably still correcting my behavior while I'm on the show. And that's why I say I consider myself a fraud, because I'm still somebody who loves that toxic behavior, right? I'm still somebody who wants that win, who wants to show that person that I can get them to love me. Why? There's nearly 8 billion people in the world. Why are we hyper-focused on the one person who doesn't love us the right way, the way that we need to be loved? Not the right way, right? The way that we need to be loved. So she brings up attachment style. And I have, Elizabeth, I'm telling you, I have my notes. I wasn't just prompted by you. The first book that I would recommend that you check out if you want to avoid toxic relationships and just be better in general, okay, is the book Attached, okay? My attachment style that I have found, I'm still reading it, is I'm like the worst one. I'm like the 1%, but not the good 1% that's a billionaire. Okay. It's like 3% of the world. There's three different styles: anxious, avoidant, and secure. We want to be secure, right? We don't want to be avoidant or anxious. We definitely don't want to be anxious avoidant. Your boy here is anxious avoidant. Okay. I don't, chalk it up, right? Fat kid growing up, couldn't get a girl to go on a date with me. I literally had a girl tell me she'd rather throw up than go on a date with me in 6th grade. Mom passed when I was really young. I didn't quite understand what that meant and why she was leaving us, until later I understood like what death was, you know what I mean? So I'm still working through that. Do I want to get to a secure place? Yeah, damn right I want to get to a secure place. And I still have an email from Elizabeth who's helping me get there. I have to answer. But I'm anxious avoidant. So that means I am going to be anxious about the fact that you are not reaching back out to me, or you're not loving me the way in which I need to be loved. And I'm going to avoid any attachment to you because I don't want this feeling of leverage that you have over me. Okay. It's a sickness and it's disgusting. Okay. It's something that I'm really working on. Figure out what your attachment style is, because if you're attached in a secure way, you can probably deal with most relationships. Now, if your attachment style is secure and you're with somebody who's anxious avoidant or anxious avoidant, that's not to say the relationship's going to be okay. It's probably to say you're going to be fine, right? Like you're going to get past, somebody's going to be like, this isn't working out. And you're going to go, okay, I saw some signs, but I'm pretty secure in my attachment style. So like, I didn't think anything of it, right? I'm like just going with the flow. If you are avoidant or if you are anxious, it's really challenging for you to be with either of those other two pair. It's also challenging for you to be with someone who's secure, but you're going to find a lot more success with someone who's secure. And that breakup, because it's probably bound to happen unless you do some investment work on the back end to really help this thing out, that breakup, that imminent end of your relationship, it's going to hurt because A, it is probably partially the fault of your attachment style. B, you are very, very good at blaming yourself for any issues in your relationship. It's what you've been conditioned to do. It is why you are anxious and avoidant, right? You're also very good at blaming your partner because it's just what we do, right? We say, it's definitely their fault because we're anxious and we're avoidant, right? Shouldn't have worked, wouldn't have worked, that kind of stuff, right? And so that's what that anxious avoidant attachment style is. You want to be in a secure place, because if you are in a toxic relationship, there's a couple of things that you're going to be able to figure out, okay? Number one, do I need to stay here? Okay, early enough on, is this a place that I want to stay at? And it may be. You may see inherent features in that lover and that partner that you want to cultivate culture, right? And see if they're the partner for you. They may be things that you've dealt with before that you can easily probably move past, right? But at the same time, if you decide to leave, okay, you'll know why, right? You decide to stay, it's going to be a lot easier for you to handle this toxicity, knowing that it's probably not you, right? That you love securely, but there may be things that are toxic about you. And if they are, then you probably will have an easier time correcting them, right? So security in all things are definitely good, okay? So the main thing that we want to do, if we are not secure partners, and if we are finding ourselves in situations where we are toxic, okay? We want to break our habits. The habits that we are in are just they're not good, okay? So we want to break our habits, make sure that we are not, repeating the same patterns over and over, because we will do that. And what stinks about it is not only are we going to repeat that pattern, we're going to realize it afterwards. It really stinks. I want to say a different word, but it really stinks. It stinks because if you had the foresight, you probably got into a relationship too soon. If you had the foresight to understand what your toxic traits were and what these avoidant or anxious or non-secure behaviors were in your attachment style, and I'm not saying that they're synonymous. These are two different things. But if you had an understanding of what you were doing to push and pull, right, you probably would be able to fix that. But here's the problem. Go back to that golf analogy. You're never going to fix your golf game in the middle of your game, right? You fix it at the range, at the driving range. The day after, the day before, the week after, the month before, whatever. That's when you fix your golf game. You don't do it while you're playing the game. Okay, just like you don't fix any sport while you're in the middle of the game, right? You can certainly make adjustments because you know what to do, but you're going to fix the way you dribble. You're not going to fix the way you shoot, right? These are inherent things that are habitual, right? It's the same thing with being in a relationship. You can't fix the stuff that you need to fix while you're actively doing the things that you do. It just doesn't work that way, right? So that's super important. So breaking those habits. The second kind of resource / book that I want to bring to your attention is love languages, your 5 love languages. And we talked about this in the beginning of kind of the I wanted to say sermon. We talked about this in the beginning of the sermon, in the beginning of the show, that you've got these different types of love languages. Now, I spoke about them in passing, telling you that my number 1 is going to be words of affirmation. You got to tell me I'm pretty. Okay. It's something that I grew up not hearing very often. Yeah, my family called me handsome, right? But I was a chubby kid growing up. I wasn't valued by most people for how I looked. I was valued by most people for the things that I could do with my brain. And even that took me some time because my communication style was terrible. I had a really awful lisp. My handwriting was awful. So that's where I was valued. I was valued for the things I could do. So telling me I'm pretty is kind of important because it took me a long time to understand that I am a pretty person. And the minute I figured it out, I didn't need to hear it again. It does help me when my partner does find me physically attractive, okay? I even have my limits, though. I don't like them only to find me physically attractive. I like to know that I'm valued for other reasons. Don't ever date me. It's like, really, if you're on the show and if you matched me on Tinder and we became Facebook friends, or you've had grand visions of going on a date with me because you saw me on Instagram or TikTok, I promise you it's not a picnic. It's a picnic where like the cobs of corn have already been eaten and like ants are in the basket. Okay. It's hard. It's hard for anyone to be loved. Right. But for me, I figured out what it is that I like. But you want to figure out which of your 5 attachment styles you are. So there's words of affirmation, which is definitely my number 1. Acts of service, and that if you don't know what that is, it's using words to show love to your partner. You're so great. You're so wonderful. I love when you do this. This is great. Blah, 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 blah. I see Christy has a question. I'll answer that in a second. Let me just get through the other 4. Number 2, acts of service. Making your spouse a cup of coffee, cooking dinner, taking out the trash, helping with the kids, putting out their clothes when they have a big day, that kind of stuff. And that sounds like a very wife traditional thing to do, right? No, 2020. Dudes can do that too. Okay. You see your spouse has a big day and you've got a lot of masculine energy where service is just not your thing, or you're not a submissive person. No, screw that. You want your partner to love you. You want your partner to value you, and the way they receive love is acts of service. Do it. Okay. Make them coffee in the morning, cook them breakfast if you know how to do it. If you don't, learn, right? That kind of stuff. So those are the first 2. Physical touch, right? Some people, it's not a big deal for them. Some people are asexual. Some people are not. Some people just don't value it, right? You would think that would be everyone's number 1, but it's not. Okay. It is quickly moved down to my number 3. Okay. I was in a situation a couple of years ago where I'm not going to get into the details, but I was not in a good place. And I honestly felt obligated to be physically intimate with every one of my dates because I thought that was expected of me. And it's terrible. And now, still years later, I'm still trying to figure out what that means to me. What does that mean to me? That physical touch. Okay. So those are the first 3. Gifts are the 4th. To me, that's pretty low on the list. I used to share my love with gifts. It's not something that I find, some people love that, to me, it seems transactional. It seems like I'm your sugar daddy and not your partner, not your lover, not your friend. If you say gifts as in little trinkets from the convenience store, I could be down for that, right? I was thinking of you, I got this. That's something that I love to do. Or I was thinking of you, your favorite color is purple. I got you 1,000 purple Post-its or something like that. And I don't know, covered the counter with it. It's something that's probably stupid, but you know what I'm saying. Your favorite color is orange, so I got an orange gift bag, put some Reese's in there, that kind of stuff. Okay. And then last but not least is quality time. This is it's my most challenging to give because I'm so busy. I'm literally running to the store to get something to do a project tonight, waking up in the morning at 5 and getting back to work. My self-care lately has been off and it's really, really crummy. But if my partner wants quality time, I have to make sure to set some time apart for them. Now, what you want to remember too is the way that you love is not necessarily the way that you show love, and the way that your partner shows love is not the way that they receive it. Or it could be, and you've got to figure out, okay, I receive love a certain way, you receive love a different way. How do I show you I love you while not compromising too much and getting what I need? Right? That could be toxic in and of itself if you don't recognize that, right? So Christy says, what are your thoughts on breaking the habit of attracting toxic men? That makes me feel like maybe I'm the toxic one. Bad circle. Christy, that is, I almost want to say next question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. I'll say this. I'll say it probably is something that you're looking for in that person, right? So for example, I'm a successful dude, right? I have an ego. Many women who find me attractive like that I'm successful, that I'm busy, these types of things. Another thing that they ask of me is quality time. They go, I need time from you. And I'm like, you told me the first thing that you liked about me was the fact that I was successful and the fact that I'm busy and that I've got these things going on, right? And now you're expecting my quality time. Well, the thing that makes me successful is my time away from you. And I'm sorry about that, right? So sometimes we look for a trait in somebody and we don't recognize what that's going to come with. You may be looking for, and Christy, I don't know your Christy and I we dated for a moment in college and it was wonderful. She was one of the strongest, most empowered, bad butt women who's ever been in my life. And we're dear friends now. I haven't seen her in some time, but I hope that you're doing well, Christy. You may be, I don't know your type at this point. You may be looking for someone who maybe they're witty, right? Because you've got some great banter in you. You're looking for somebody who's witty. Somebody who's witty is also going to be super sarcastic, and they're also probably going to be pretty insecure in the way that they argue because they do it to hurt, right? You may enjoy the wittiness, and then there's that threshold of diminishing returns where you're like, ooh, that's toxic, right? You need to find, and I'm going to say it again, 8 billion people in the world, almost, right? What you need to find then is somebody who's witty enough, who can handle your banter, but secure enough in themselves to know that we're just sparring, right? That's a problem for me, too. I love a little witty banter. I get defensive real quick because I get hurt really easily. So it's hard for me to do that. And I've told people, look, don't jab at me in a way that, don't jab at me in a way that could poke fun at something I've got going on because, it's going to put me on the defensive. It's going to really hurt my feelings. You go through years of bullying, you're going to be sensitive to that. That's a trigger for you, right? Christy says back, stumped you. Yes, you did. That is so incredibly true about wanting something, equating it with other things. Great insight. And yes, I'm bad. Yes, you are, Christy, for sure. Thank you so much for commenting. I truly appreciate that. We also want to think about when we're in a toxic relationship, setting boundaries, okay? Setting boundaries and making sure that we're not compromising too much, because what ends up happening in a toxic relationship, I was in a toxic relationship and borderline abusive, to be honest. It wasn't something that I was proud to be in. I took a lot of hits there. And, I was talking with my life coach about it, and I need to get back to, I haven't found a good therapist on Talkspace. I had a great one, and she can't handle me anymore because I moved to Nevada and she deals with New York. And so I'm still kind of in limbo. But one thing that we were kind of talking about with this fairly abusive, but I'll push in the toxicity as well, is that you're going to this thing's going to end. It is going to end unless you invest some serious, you're married a couple of years or you're just ready to invest. This is the person for you. Do it. If you don't, it's going to end, and it's going to end painfully. And you're going to wind up, because of that toxicity, because of the boundaries you didn't set, because you were so all in to this magnetizing, beautiful, romantic thing that you had, you're going to end that relationship. And this is something I still, every night, almost. No, I shouldn't say that. Excuse me. It's been about 2 months since I've had these conversations in my brain. But for 5 or 6 months, I was having conversations in my brain with this person, fighting with them about how they were wrong and abusive and hurtful and toxic. In my brain, hoping that one day I could have that conversation. Here's the kicker. It's never going to freaking happen. If that person's abusive, they're going to stay abusive unless they go through some serious therapy. If that person's toxic for you, they're not going to see the things that you're pointing out. And they don't want to, just like you don't want to see the things that they're pointing out, right? So you're going to leave this relationship in such dismay and in a way that because your boundaries have been cut, because you didn't seek the support you should have, you didn't really you didn't invest in the things you wanted to invest. You kept going back to these same habits, right? Your self-esteem is destroyed. You're not loving it. So when the relationship ends and you've destroyed it, you've compromised everything you could possibly compromise in the hope that this thing's going to remain wonderful, and it doesn't. You failed the utmost of failure in a situation that wasn't going to be successful to begin with. So what are we doing, right? You need to recognize. Elizabeth's probably laughing. I'm lecturing you on what you need to recognize. I'm like, serve me up another toxic martini, please. We need to recognize the relationships that we're in. If they are toxic, if they are not meant for us, we need to let them go. That magnetism, that power, that strength that brings us in, that super, I don't want to get into like the sex of it because I do teach people and I don't want that word to be associated with my professional self. That intimacy that we crave, that we hold on to, that we find in this person. We're like, oh my God, this is the most attractive person. Oh my goodness, I want them so badly. They have everything I want. They don't. We think they do. They have so many things that we want. And we compromise and we break our boundaries and we break ourselves to the point where we have lost ourselves. I've done this from age 16 to 36, probably prior to 16, and I didn't even notice. Okay. Just to get this person to like me. Again, there's 8 billion people in the world. Again, we don't need to do this. Again, you're going to leave that relationship in a way that it leaves you in utter dismay and leaves you broken. Okay. Because probably we weren't secure in our thought process to begin with. Now, we're coming up to the end of it. If you have any extra comments, please let me know. I wanted to talk about toxicity with family, toxicity at work, toxicity with friends, because the romanticism isn't necessarily subject to just intimate partners, right? It could very well be that we've got this work project that we're working on or a department that we just love because maybe there's some romance, right? Maybe there's somebody there that we love working with. Right? Maybe we love the project. We see potential in this department, in this project, in this product that we're working on, right? And it's never going to come to fruition, but we work on it. We day and night, and we're killing ourselves. Toxicity in family. Your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle who doesn't understand you. You're on different sides of the political spectrum. You're on different sides of something. You don't see eye to eye, and you keep trying every holiday to make conversation with this person. It's not going to happen. Okay. Once we're past like 25, 27 years old, dude, your habits are your habits. Good luck trying to break them. You can. It takes a little bit more than I want to do it. Okay. It takes a lot more than that. Okay. Toxicity with friends. There are friends that have gotten used to being toxic with you, breaking up on and off. I'm not talking about fighting with this person. Bruh, be gone. Okay. Men don't typically do this only because we don't express our relationships and our feelings with other men. So we tend to just bottle up and we fist fight and then we're good. Like I can't tell you how many bar fights I've gotten into with my buddies. So it's a little different, a little more painful, probably a little bit less healthy, way less healthy because we don't talk about what's going on, but less symptoms of toxicity, right? Anyway, Christy says, hitting the nail on the head with that one, crushing it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's so good to have you. I hope you get to come on to another one of our shows. What a blast coming on. So anyway, we're about 48 minutes in. I want to just make sure that I'm respectful of the next show. I know Cece's got to get going. By the way, if you didn't hear Roulette's show, he's amazing. I got to catch a little bit of it while I was on the phone, and I believe Thinking Twice is on unless something happened. Last week we couldn't get on last week, but I think he's on. I'm always sandwiched between these two brainiacs, right? Roulette and Twice, two charismatic dudes I love to hang out with for sure. But that is the end of our show. I just want to reiterate, look, toxicity is not necessarily going to destroy your relationship, but it's definitely not the answer, right? So if you've got something toxic in your relationship, without a doubt, you need to address it quickly and with all of your strength if you want this relationship to go forth. And it's going to take a lot of compromise. And you need to be okay with the fact that you might get hurt a lot worse than the toxicity itself, right? That was your show for tonight, Attachment to Toxicity. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. You are watching The Barbershop on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm so glad we got to go on the show today, Cece. I'm so sorry I was late, but I think we made it a great one. Make sure to tune in for Twice. If you didn't watch Roulette's show, definitely check him out. He's got some great folks on the care package. I really enjoyed your information and your comments and just your presence. And thanks for helping me work through this as well, because it's something we're all thinking about. Enjoy the rest of your night. And this is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. Have a great night, and thanks for